Hi everyone, this is O'Connor Vince here. This week I wanted to show you a little bit of a walkthrough through the Visual Art and Music Technology project. So let's take a look. So I'm just going to try and run through, there are 2 posts on Google Classroom. I'll run through this as quickly as I can. And I've even kind of modified the project for you a little bit. This can also be used as an activity leading up to a project that we originally do with the visual arts students. So programmatic music is a type of music that correlates with a story or a visual. So if you've ever heard a particular piece, particularly classical music or experimental music, and have kind of gotten this vivid imagery, this might be a programmatic piece. Programmatic music usually starts from the beginning with the story. So usually it's not after the fact, but music does have a tendency to bring us to other places visually and kind of tells a story. So I've given you a couple examples here, such as Berlioz' Symphonie Fantastique or Aaron Copland's Rodeo. We can kind of get these images through music, and it kind of almost creates a story based off of different musical and visual elements that we'll talk about in a little bit. Another great example of programmatic music is Disney's Fantasia and Fantasia 2000. If you've ever seen Mickey Mouse as a wizard with a hat on, that actually comes from the movie Fantasia. And what Fantasia does is it's illustrated by Disney artists who hear stories when they listen to certain classical pieces of work. Now, does all programmatic have to be classical? No, absolutely not, which is where you guys come in. So we're going to take a piece of art, we're going to kind of dissect it a little bit and kind of correlate it with some musical elements. So it's cross-curricular, going from visual art to music as an art form, obviously. Some of these examples here are just kind of things that I did. I did this as an example as an artist and also as a musician, so I could kind of get the feel for teaching both sides of it. So these are pieces that correlate with this picture here. So each one of these layers is a different song. So that's something that you can look at if you're interested. Vasily Kandinsky was a modern visual artist, but he is probably most famous for using music in his work. So this piece is called Composition 7. And if we look at this piece, there are several things that kind of pop out. There are lots of shapes, there's lots of movement, there's lots of colors. This could signify a lot of different things in the musical world. Lots of different shapes could mean lots of different rhythmic patterns. Lots of colors could mean lots of different instruments. And again, we'll take a closer look at this, but this is just an example so you get kind of the general headspace of how we're going to kind of dissect each art piece. There are several links here. I'm not going to go through all of them. Some of them are videos that you can check out that kind of talk a little bit more about the correlation between art and music. There's a couple articles here. But the one thing that I do want you to really pay attention to is this PDF. It's called Art and Music TC Notes PDF. This was a handout I actually got at grad school when we were learning about this project. So if you scroll down here a little bit, you can see some familiar vocabulary words that we see in music: rhythm, dynamics, melody, harmony, tone color, texture, form, and style. Now, the interesting part about this list is that not only does it have the music aspect, but it also has the art aspect. So for rhythm, we think of different patterns. So how long or short a note is, right? That's duration. Tempo, how fast or slow something is. And in art, they might think about this as fast or slow lines or marks, or again, different patterns of marks or different shapes. So if you have a repetitive shape or a repetitive line, that might signify to you as the musician to create something that has a repeating rhythm in it. Dynamics, loud or quiet, and an art that translates to light or dark, contrast. So again, having kind of this dual mind going back and forth between the two. Melody, linear or horizontal presentation of pitch. So again, how high or low a note is. For art, we can look at how high or low and side-to-side movement and placement and marks on a page. So let's say you have something that's repetitive. It might go like this, right? So what would that mean for the melody? Maybe it goes up and down and up and down and up and down, versus if it just stayed in a single line. Harmony, verticalization of pitch. So meaning more than one note playing at a time, right? And usually we have notes stacked on top of each other. With that being said, for art, lighter tints and darker shades of the same color or hue. So maybe for if you have, 3 different notes, maybe you have 3 different shades of blue that are together. Thinking about how different colors can be represented by different notes. Tone color or timbre. The difference between singing a note and playing that same note on a piano or guitar, saxophone, or flute. So picking the actual instrument is really key here, whether you have a synthesizer or maybe a really strong bass or a flute sound. All of these things are going to kind of portray a different kind of theme or idea. So in art, we have color variation. So again, if you think about using all different types of colors, maybe you have a piece that's all saxophones. So maybe you would use all different types of one color. It's up to you. Texture, number of individual musical lines sounding at once, one note sounding at a time versus many notes sounding at a time. Art elements or principles, layering or texture. So again, do you have many instruments? Is there a whole symphony playing at once? Or is it a solo instrument, right? That's going to translate very differently art-wise too. Form, we're very familiar with form, right? Like ABA, et cetera, et cetera. Way the entire piece is structured in sections. So if the piece has different types of figures, and you can kind of categorize or break apart the visual piece in different sections, that might be something to look for in terms of how would you construct the song, right? Does this corner of the art piece represent A? Does this corner represent B? Et cetera, et cetera. And then last but not least, style. We can also think about this as genre, so recognizable characteristic by period or genre. So again, if we think about all the different genres that we've studied, think about how that would translate to a visual aspect. So if something has certain colors in it or has certain figures in it, does that remind you of any certain genre? Maybe you want to look at that genre as kind of a starting point or inspiration. Okay, so again, back on the Google post here. Also something to point out, we are going to be dealing with modern art. So if you are someone that doesn't really get abstract art, There are a few really good videos that are also posted on here to kind of help you a little bit understand kind of the meaning and importance of abstract art. The link here is a SoundCloud playlist of previous work. You can see 2015 to 2016. So if you want examples, you can click on one of these pieces and you can see the artwork that a student did and then the song that a music tech student did. Okay. What I want to show you, though, is an example me and Mr. Kemp actually did together 4 years ago. So this was his image that he drew, and I will kind of walk you through in the description. You can read the elements that I chose. You're going to choose 3 elements to kind of guide your creation process. So let's take a little listen. Okay, so now let's look at the description here so you can kind of get more of a idea of what I was thinking when I created that piece. So rhythm, again, that's like repetition of how long or short different notes are. Multiple repetitive circles appear in this piece, creating a feeling of more than one circle. So you can see here, right, there are multiple kind of circles. This is kind of like a claw almost, right? So that to me kind of gave me the idea to have that repetitive bass line and kind of like that bubble bright sound there. Tone color. Cool colors represent a relaxing, laid-back electronic feel, giving the viewer a sense of vastness and relaxation. So again, the colors here, you can see purples and blues and greens. This kind of gave me more of a subdued feeling. It wasn't very like in your face, and it's almost like the whole photo almost has like a shadow over it, right? It's kind of gray. It's not even necessarily pure white, right? And then last but not least, form. The giant circle in the middle signifies a circle of form. ABA gives the listener a sense of complete rotation, repeating the beginning part of the piece. So again, with circles, we have a lot of repetition, right? So if you see a circle figure or shape in a piece, that kind of is a key idea of repetition or things repeating itself. Okay, so back on Google Classroom here, I want to show you the other post that I think is actually more specific to your particular project or activity. So it says, select a piece of art, options provided in the Google form. I also selected those files onto the Google Classroom post here as well, so you can kind of get a little bit of preview and you don't have to open the Google form every time you want to reference the different pieces of art. These examples were created by famous artists, and we'll get into that in a second. So you're going to pick one of these famous pieces of art, and you're going to create a song based off of your choice of art. And using that handout that I referenced earlier with all the different musical and artistic elements, you are going to pick 3 elements that you are going to focus on, and you're going to fill that out in the Google form. Please respond to your work. What musical and visual elements did you connect with? Again, things like rhythm, texture, tone, color, etc. See handout on previous posts for more details. Remember, you must share your project with me on Soundtrap or post it on SoundCloud. Make sure that you let me know. I would, again, like for you to make sure that you include what elements, like a little description, either on SoundCloud like I did or in the Google form, okay? You must turn in the Google form for full credit. So let's take a look at the form. So please respond to the following prompts while working on your Soundtrap project. Please make me a collaborator when finished. You guys know how to do that in Soundtrap. Please make sure to review both posts on Google Classroom before diving into this project. So don't just open the Google form and think that you're going to be able to do this whole project, okay? Please select a piece of art, options provided below. Based off this piece of art, we will respond musically, creating a song. So here we have Jackson Pollock, Vasily Kandinsky, Pablo Picasso, and Mark Rothko. Okay, now as you can see, these pieces of art are all abstract art. Kandinsky, so I gave you some kind of clues earlier in the video here to kind of help you out there if you want to do those. After reading about musical and visual elements, again referencing that handout, please select 3 elements that you will incorporate into your song. So you need to check 3 boxes here. Which 3 elements are you going to kind of focus on while creating your song? After completing your song, please write a brief paragraph demonstrating how you correlated the 3 elements selected above with your song. So please respond with that little description right in this space here. And then click submit. So in addition to the Google form, all you have to do is make sure that you share the project with me on Soundtrap. Okay, so back on the Google post here, let's take a look at these pieces a little bit closer. Kind of already went over the Kandinsky. So this is Jackson Pollock. And again, right off the bat, you see that there are a lot of different kind of shades of the same colors, right? So you don't have like bright reds and greens and whatnot. This piece, I think, is called Autumn something, which kind of gives you, again, this idea of or imagery of autumn. The browns and the grays definitely kind of signify that. As far as shapes go, right, this is more of like a splatter paint, right? So you can do a lot of really cool things with that if you wanted to be very rhythmic, or if you wanted to kind of have a lot of different melodies and harmonies going on at once, you could do that. And again, maybe only using 3 or 4 different types of instruments because the color scheme is so close together. But again, that's just my interpretation. Your interpretation might be different. You might want to hold on to other elements. And again, because this is abstract art, we're all going to see something a little bit different, and that's okay. You might pick the same painting that one of your friends does, and your songs might sound totally different, and that's okay. As long as your description and your interpretation is thoroughly kind of thought out and supported, then that's what counts. Okay? Very different. Here, we only have really 3 shapes, right? So this is something form-wise that you could really latch on to with like an A, B, and a C section. Very simple If you wanted to do something, again, instrument-wise, that was very similar, that might work well. The yellows and red is kind of calming almost, right? In contrast with the white up here. So that might sound a little bit different as well. Again, things to kind of think about here. And last, but certainly not least, we have Picasso. And this is called Weeping Woman. Obviously very sad. She's weeping. But we do have these really kind of standout colors here. This red, this black at the bottom here. You could kind of go more along the lines of kind of telling a story of maybe why she's weeping. You could talk about this kind of middle section here versus her kind of outer section here, right? Those are two different colors. Maybe that is different with instruments or with form. Maybe the red hat kind of has a bright beginning, but not a happy ending, etc., etc. So again, up to your interpretation. So pick one of these pieces, create some music with it, share it with me on Soundtrap, and fill out the Google form. All right, groovy guys, have fun.